So it falls to me to try and summarize the day, and I'm going to do this with highlights and observations that I've noted down. The event management team's also been taking full notes on the points made during the day, and I hope we'll share those in due course and build on them for the global IGF. But these are essentially my highlights and observations. And we began the morning with a presentation by Ofcom's Group Director for Strategy and Research, Yi Chong-tae. He focused on two recent Ofcom reports, the Online Nation report, which looks at the country's internet experience today, and the Internet Futures report, which looks at the internet experience that's yet to come. And in his presentation and the Q&A session that followed, he noted in particular that, yes, 94% of households now have internet access, and internet use has accelerated in significant ways during the pandemic, not least in relation to education and work. But he also noted the continued digital divide and the dangers of digital and social exclusion that can arise from these, and indeed the danger that they can be exacerbated. He also talked about Ofcom's work in relation to online harms and the problems which its research shows that many people experience alongside the positives of internet engagement. We came back to that later in the day. And finally, he talked about the exhilarating pace of change and the unpredictability arising from that as people continue to adopt new technological opportunities and as businesses develop new ways of using the internet. This posed, he pointed out, regulatory challenges that reach beyond the issues in the online safety bill. And he emphasized Ofcom's commitments to facilitating innovation, to targeted, transparent and appropriate regulation, and to collaboration with international partners. So then in the rest of the day, we had three sessions which looked at challenges concerning the internet's interface with society. That these are areas which are widely seen as posing problems as well as opportunities. And the first of those was concerned with cybercrime, increasingly important. And we had three introductory presentations on this. At a national level, we heard about police preparedness and activity, including support for crime prevention and protection against crime, as well as responding after crime. And initiatives here included cyber resilience centers that bring together policing, industry, and academia. One issue that was stressed was the importance of enabling people to understand the threats they face in order to protect themselves. And there were some suggestions concerning this made by speakers, which may be of value to us in the audience and to others. We also heard of cyber dogs, which are not living dogs, which are living dogs, sorry, not something like K9 from Doctor Who. But at a global level, we also heard about discussions that are underway towards a UN cybercrime convention and some of the risks that may arise from that in relation to human rights. We heard about British efforts to build international cooperation and about the longer term experience on which that international cooperation could also build. One thing this revealed was the different perceptions of what cybercrime is and what it requires, including the ways in which challenges like ransomware affect both individual users and national security. And this requires, this was, I think, a theme that came across in a number of sessions, this requires better communications about where the problems lie, about their complexities, about what people can do about them. Another interesting suggestion to my mind was the potential for applying public health frameworks to cybersecurity. All of which raised the importance of debating where the balance lies between national security, preventing crime, and human rights. The third session of the day looked ahead to the COP26 summit, which is due to begin in Glasgow in a couple of weeks' time. And that session was called Greening the Internet. It followed on from last year's discussion of ways in which the internet interacts with energy consumption and climate change, and with other aspects of environmental sustainability, including pollution and the depletion of resources. We had an introduction here to the current state of play from Anna Yang concerning latest assessment of high levels of risk associated with climate change, which have been identified in the recent report by the International Panel on Climate Change, and also the prospects for the COP26 conference. And we explored the dramatic increase in data volumes and data transmission volumes and the potential impact of these on energy consumption. This includes issues of efficiency and the risk of rebound effects arising from efficiency, of transparency, including understanding the environmental impact of different business models, ways of enabling better power infrastructure, addressing issues of embedded energy, and of resource depletion. Big challenges, in short, and again, communication, enabling people to know where they're consuming more energy and where they're not, where it makes sense for them to target their own personal efforts to minimize their contribution to sustainability. And climate change is, of course, only one part of sustainability. And easily measured aspects of digitalization, like data centers, are only part of understanding environmental impacts that are generated by digitalization. So our understanding and efforts to address environmental impacts need to be holistic and societal. They need to consider resource use and waste, as well as energy and climate. Michael Okier emphasized how this requires businesses to adopt sustainable design and business models, which build on long-term goals rather than short-term profit or convenience, and to consider the regulation required for that. But the session ended by looking further at systemic changes that are needed in economy, society, and culture, not just in the digital area. How optimistic are we and how pessimistic about that? And our last and longest main session of the day was concerned with the dual goals of freedom of expression and protection from online harm through the lens of the government's online safety bill. There's a complicated, complex set of issues here with a lot of nuance, a wicked problem, as Damien Tambini described it in the discussion, to which there have been a lot of simplistic observations made in public debate. In truth, there are no simple answers here. I was struck in particular by the observation that social media is now, for many people, the principal forum for freedom of expression, not just for reading news, as is often said, but for freedom of expression. And the relationship between freedom of expression and protection from harm is not therefore a marginal issue, it's a fundamental one. So the centerpiece of this discussion was the online safety bill. Orla McRae from DCMS presented this as being about setting frameworks for the sector with three objectives, addressing three risks. So addressing criminality, protecting children, and protecting freedom of expression. Setting frameworks in regard to these rather than intervening directly as government on specifics. Damien Tambini raised two particular areas of concern about governance aspects of the bill, the role and independence of Ofcom as a regulator, and the definition of harm, covering both illegal and legal content, which is harmful. He was looking for a complex system of co-regulation which has public trust, and that's not easy to achieve. And Alan Rusbridger noted the similarity between the issues concerning content which is legal but harmful, which are raised in the bill, and those which he deals with as a member of the Facebook Oversight Board, a board which he described as an experiment worth watching. And that seemed to me a phrase that might also be applied to the online safety bill. So that set the scene for a general discussion which focused on some of the complexities that are raised. To mention some of those were discussed, issues of regulatory independence and the extent of powers that the bill would give to government, the application of international human rights norms and specific issues related to these, such as anonymity, the need to develop standards for assessing harm to individuals and society, incentives for compliance, the potential and proportionality of sanctions that might be appropriate to global corporations and to smaller players, how to make such corporations accountable and to whom. So the messages from this event, from the various sessions yesterday and today, will be passed on to colleagues from around the world at the Global Internet Governance Forum, which is being held in Katowice, Poland, from the 6th to the 10th of December, but also online. I'm not yet decided whether I'll be there or not. I've attended every global IGF so far since 2006, so it would be a shock for me not to go. And I've attended pretty much every UK IGF since they began as well. I think there are two big challenges these meetings face, and they're challenges which I think we've been pretty successful in meeting over the last couple of years. So one is covering a very broad range of issues about both the governance of the internet and the governance of the impact of the internet, so its relationship with society, economy, and culture. We focused a bit more yesterday on the governance of the internet, a bit more today on the governance of its impact. What's important at all, though, I think, is to recognize and address the real complexity of issues, opportunities and risks, understanding that they really aren't likely to be simple, straightforward, obvious responses to something so fast moving and uncertain, and that therefore dialogue of this kind amongst different stakeholders is really important. And therefore the other challenge is to ensure diversity of views, experiences and perspectives, which is more than about being simply multi-stakeholder. I think the global IGF is sometimes criticized for having the same faces fronting too many of its sessions, for having perhaps a multi-stakeholder, some of the like-minded. We try hard here at the UK IGF to bring in different voices with different experiences and different perspectives, and to facilitate discussion that's going to stimulate ideas. I think we've been able to do that again this year in difficult circumstances. I certainly hope you feel so too. That's partly down to the commitment of my fellow members of the organising committee, who I must say put in an amazing amount of time and effort into building a programme that we think will be worthwhile. So I hope you feel that's paid off, but it's also down to the commitment and enthusiasm of the chairs and panelists who've taken part over the last couple of days. Their contribution in debating this wide range of issues has been terrific, and I hope you'll kind of give them a silent round of applause. The same too for the organising, for others involved. So on behalf of the organising committee, I'd like to thank some other people who've done so much to make this meeting a success. Our event management team at Fleischmann Hillard have, as usual, been fantastic in helping us to deliver a great, what I hope has been a great event. The team at Nominet, who have backed the forum to the hilt this year, as they've done for many years. The providers of our digital platform, DigiLounge, the donors for this year's event, who've included ICANN, Donut, and the UK chapter of the Internet Society. And so finally, I'd just like to thank you yourselves for taking part. I'm glad to see quite a few of you still on board at the end of the second day. I do hope you've learned something. I hope you found something to inspire you, maybe something to annoy you, but I hope you've also enjoyed the show. And if we can't see you again, or if we haven't been able to see you physically here this time, I hope we will be able to see you physically next year around, and perhaps some of you as well at the Global IGF in Katowice in Poland, again, either physically or online. So thank you very much again for attending, and for me, this is good night.